welcome to another Coffee with Kilroy. Or, you got it, beverage in a book. My beverage, well, I've got it here on a little bit cold and rainy day. And the book is another one from Mr. Mike Lambo. This is the latest from Mr. Lambo, Sherman, a Solitaire Wargame. Now I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to go turn right to the front cover here so you can see all the different Mike Lambo game books that are out there now. I think I've done coverage on every single one of these. There's been a couple of these I think he sent to me. I think he sent me Fields and Beaches, maybe. I know there was a couple that he sent. The rest of them I just couldn't wait and went out and got them. But I'll put links to those in the description down below, as well as maybe a video of some of the videos I've done or shows I've been on talking about this genre in general, this game book or war game book genre, because there's quite a few out there. It didn't start this year, but it has blossomed this year nonetheless. So on the back here, here's Mr. Lambo. On the back here, you have a note here. Lone Sherman puts you in charge of a single Sherman tank and its crew somewhere in France in World War II, and tasks you with navigating your Sherman through varied and challenging missions. Whilst this game is not a narrative-driven game as such, with a little imagination, it will provide memorable stories. Now, I'm going to take a little objection there. Is I think these do provide somewhat of a narrative. They're not your straight-up, chart-driven narrative games that emanate out of B17. These are more hex encounter adjacent or hex encounter type games that are put in a book format. But I think there's still some narrative to be had. The mission allows the players to invent any kind of backstory they like in order to enhance the feel of the game. Some events are randomly generated, but the player always has at least some degree of control over the level of risk they wish to take and how vulnerable they leave their tank to these events. The aim of this book is to present a clear, accessible, and quick-to-learn game so that players can get into the action quickly. It does not try to replace more complex war games, which often take many hours to learn and play. Each of the 11 missions can be played in around an hour, although sometimes a mission will last a much shorter time if your tank is destroyed. Yeah. Each mission provides plenty of replayability due to the random setup of the initial forces and the many events and decisions in the game. So let's start doing our page through here. I need another sip. Okay. Solitaire War Game. You're going to have the introduction, background, how the book works. And if you're familiar with Mike Lambo's games, then they're not all the same, but they all have, several of them have a lot of similarity about how they build the AI or how they conduct the AI and how you make your decisions. And they vary too as to the game board, which is a page out of this book or out of the book that you're playing out of. They might be hexes, they might be a regular grid, they might be somewhat kind of a point-to-point or track. So there are differences between the games, but a lot of them share some of the same characteristics. You have objectives, or objective key concepts and setup. So you have objectives, the map, the units, the crew, facing, lines of sight, and range. As you see here, this is somewhat of a tactical hex encounter game, but it's put in a book. Attacking tanks, both Sherman and German, mission setup. Then you have your main rules, including the turn process. Phase 1, remove Sherman. Phase 2, position the commander. Remove Sherman smoke, I should say, is phase 1. Phase 2, position and commander. Phase 3, the Sherman operations phase. Phase 4, remove German smoke. Phase 5, fire level check. Phase 6, German tank operations. Phase 7, end of turn events phase. And then you've got 11 campaigns here. The village, tiger hunt, eliminate infantry, just passing through the lake, destroy the truck, damage and surround 3-on-1, just passing through the bridge, assassination across the river, just passing through the town. So you've got several of these just passing throughs, and still gladiators. Then you have some suggested counters. That's another thing about these games. When they first started coming out, they were designed that you mark in the book. Just get a pencil, eraser, pen, whatever you want to do, and you can mark in the book. If you mark it up, though, you either have to erase it, and that's probably going to get worn over time, or buy a new book. I'm sure Mr. Lambo would be fine with that. A lot of people, like myself, I would make copies. Some people put it under plexi, and so you can mark on the plexiglass, or find some kind of other surface that you could mark on without damaging the book. So there's a lot of different ways to handle this, but even the more industrious would go out and make their own counters, or use cubes, or you even use little minis. Grab some of your World War II minis, or Axis and Allies minis, or something like that. And you can use that on these as well. So there's a lot of different ways to play these games. If you're on the portable side, you're probably going to want to mark it in itself, or bring copies, or little a one-page plexi or some kind of sheet to put over it, clear sheet. If you've got a little bit more table space, then you might want to go into making your own counters, or having minis or cubes or whatever have you. But he started to have suggested counters in these books now, so that you can play with it in a more akin to a board game, a box board game. All right, here's your introduction, how the book works. Here's your objectives. Here's your maps, and there's going to be a terrain. Hey, this looks like a war game, doesn't it? Here's your terrain features, or your terrain key there. You've got the units and some of their abilities or characteristics: size, armor value, armor piercing. You have your crew. Here's facing, line of sight, and range. Here's the attacking tanks. Here's your to hit and damage. There's some charts there. And here's an explanation of this. Here's your step-by-step process of how that works. And it continues on over here. Then you've got like your facing here, and the damage. And then you've got some advanced damage here, it looks like here too, or a chart for additional damage, or where it gets damaged. Sherman damage and German tank damage there. And as I said, this to me, contrary to what he said, that this really isn't narrative driven, stuff like this, where this leads into a narrative, right? It talks about a member of the crew might be killed in action, blah, blah, blah. It talks about what happens in what area and stuff like that, and if it's mobilized. There's a lot to, although it's not a straight narrative or paragraph for each one of these, but there's a lot of narrative that can be had out of some of this stuff. Here's mission setup. And here's the main phases that we kind of talked about, or at least listed before. And here's the Sherman operation phase. So this is how you'll be making some of your decisions. And it explains, this is like a lot of movement, like maneuver, reverse, turn, move, doubles. Then you get into attack here. Some of the things dealing with that: load, fire machine guns, fire main gun. Then you got a miscellaneous, okay? So it looks like quite a few rules here, but again, this is kind of a board game in a book, right? So there's your rules. Here's dealing with phase 4, phase 5, phase 6. Now this is the AI. This is where the the Germans come in and what they do and how they do it. And it talks a little bit about a description of what that means and how that works, whether it's fire, move, reverse, turns, etc. Here's an example of that on this page here. And this going over rule 3 here a little bit more. And then you got end of turn events phase, what happens here. And so you got stuff like, snipers and mines and mechanical failure, a Stuka. Some good stuff there, right? And it talks a little bit more about explanation of some of those special events or different events. You got your mission selection. Now, this is the way a mission is going to look. So this is mission 1. This is the village, and you're going to have all your charts and everything and how to play the game on the left-hand side, and then the game itself, or the board, or the page, is on the right-hand side. And you can mark on this, or you could use minis on this, or you use cubes, or you can make your own counters, which there's going to be some suggestions in the back of the book, but you can use that and use that on this board. There are some places to do some notes here, I think. So I imagine this is probably your crew here that you're keeping track of some of their stuff. So I mean, putting this under a plexiglass or some kind of clear sheet that you can mark on might work well here as well. And then you can mark on that or move minis on it, right? But all of the charts you need are on this side of the book. Okay? And then each one of these missions is going to look like that with all the stuff you need to play the game here. Of course, you might have to refer to, an explanation of it from time to time back here in the rules, but all your charts and gameplay tables are here, and then this is the board itself. And each one of these missions is going to be like that. So missions 2, what you need to play, where you play it. Mission 3, what you need to play, where you play it. And each one of these is unique. These charts are going to be different. This board's going to be different. And, your kind of objective or outcomes probably, or mission's going to be different as well. So, and if you've started off with these books in the beginning, I mean, they're all good, but I mean, you can see kind of an evolution of how they've developed some of the charts and the color coding for the gameplay, but also the boards themselves. These have developed and evolved over time, adding a little bit more richness to some of the gameplay there. There's mission 5, mission 6, and you said, as it said in the thing, you get 11 missions here. So a lot of gameplay here. I mean, if you want to mark this up and play it once, fine. Again, I think Mr. Lambo and Amazon would probably find that to be perfectly okay. But there's a lot of gameplay. I mean, you can play each one of these missions multiple times because there's a certain set of randomness and chaos that's built in these tables. And then that's, again, based on the decisions you make on this side of the page. So that's going to be different just about every time, right? And so quite a bit of gameplay here. As you can see, in this is mission 11. And let's see what we got here. Then we have some suggested counters. So here's the suggested counters for the tanks, for your crew. It looks like there's some weather counter there, whether there's a fire or not. There's some, I don't know if that's, well, no, this is not weather, this is smoke. So it's smoke and hits maybe, and then whether there's fire or not. But these are some suggested counters. You don't have to use these counters, or you can use these counters. You could print these off on a, what I usually tend to do is I'd print these off maybe on a sticker sheet, and then like one of those clear label things, and then put that over on some thicker stock, and then cut it out that way. And so these are a little bit thicker. Or you can do it however you want. Print this out on some thicker stock if you've got it, if your printer can handle it. But it talks a little bit about the, how to use the counters and where you can get them on Board Game Geek. It looks like there. Anyway, the rest of that's blank, and that is what you get in a book of Lone Sherman, a solitaire war game from Mike Lambo, his latest. As I said, this is a ever-growing genre or niche or whatever you want to call it. I mean, there's Worthington, there's Lambo, there's Patterson and God, who am I leaving out? There's so many different people. Kirkpatrick and Mitchell and others. Campbell, and a lot of people are getting into this wave of game books that are focused on war. So war game books to be more specifically, and they do them in different ways. This one is more of a war game what you might find in a magazine or in a box version, but put in a book format. It's a little bit, it bridges that gap a little bit closer than some of the other ones that are out there. Some of the other ones, might be based more on like choose your own adventure or stuff like that. But anyway, there you have it. The latest from Mr. Lambo. Love to hear your thoughts on it. I'd love to know that you're stopping by. So if you stop by, thank you. Really appreciate that. Drop a comment so I know you stopped by, and tell me what you think, and tell others what you think. Like this, love it, hate it. Never gonna do it. Too simple or not enough, meat on the bone for you, or whether you really like this, that this is nice and portable, and you like having this option to, as it says here, they're like an hour, so to kick one of these out in an hour or less, to scratch that itch. Love to know your thoughts on it. Anyway, that's what I have for you today. Enjoy your coffee, enjoy your day, your evening, your night, whatever time it is, morning, afternoon, or night. And thank you for stopping by. I really, really, really do appreciate that. And have a good one, all. Thanks for watching.